Lesson 16: Updating arrays in state. 1. Updating arrays in state. Arrays in JavaScript are mutable by nature, but when you use them in React state, you should treat them as if they were immutable. This means that you shouldn't change the array directly. Instead, when you need to update an array, you create a new one or make a copy of an existing one and then update the state to use that new array. 2. Updating arrays without mutation. In JavaScript, arrays are a kind of object, so the same immutability rule applies. You should consider arrays stored in React state as read-only. This means you should not reassign their elements or use methods that modify the array directly. Whenever you need to change an array, pass a new array to your state setting function. You can do this by using non-mutating methods such as filter or map, which create new arrays instead of modifying the original. There are certain methods to avoid and others to prefer. Avoid using mutating methods like push, pop, shift, unshift, splice, reverse, or sort directly on your state arrays. Instead, prefer methods or approaches that return new arrays, such as concat, slice, filter, or map. You can also use the spread syntax to copy and extend arrays easily. If you find that you prefer using the old mutating syntax, you can use a library like Immer, which lets you write that way but still preserves immutability behind the scenes. A small pitfall to note: slice and splice sound similar but behave very differently. Slice copies all or part of an array, while splice actually modifies it. In React, you'll use slice far more often because it doesn't mutate. 3. Adding to an array. When you want to add an element to an array, don't use methods that change it directly. Instead, create a new array that includes the existing items and the new one. The simplest way is to use the spread syntax to copy the existing items and then include your new item either at the end or at the beginning. This approach replaces the state with a completely new array rather than changing the original one. By doing this, you ensure React correctly detects that the array has changed and re-renders the component. 4. Removing from an array. The easiest way to remove an element from an array without mutating it is to filter it out. The filter method creates a new array that includes only the items you want to keep. For example, you can keep every item except the one that matches a particular condition, such as an identifier. The important thing to remember is that filter returns a new array and doesn't modify the original one. This makes it perfect for React state updates. 5. Transforming an array. If you need to modify one or more items inside an array, use the map method. Map allows you to transform each item by returning a new version of it while leaving others unchanged. You decide inside your mapping function what to modify and what to keep as is. This is very common when you want to adjust certain properties of items or when only specific elements should change. 6. Replacing items in an array. If you want to replace an item in an array, remember that direct assignment, like setting a value by index, mutates the array. Instead, you can use map again. Inside your map function, you can compare each item's index or another identifier to decide whether to keep it or replace it with a new version. This pattern of conditionally replacing items using map ensures your updates are predictable and immutable. 7. Inserting into an array. Sometimes you'll want to insert an item not at the beginning or end, but at a specific position. To do this, you can use the spread syntax together with slice. Slice lets you split your array into parts before and after the desired insertion point. You then create a new array by combining the first part, the new item, and the second part. This produces a new array without mutating the original one. 8. Making other changes to an array. Certain operations like reversing or sorting an array can't be done directly on state arrays because both reverse and sort modify the array in place. To handle this, you first copy the array using the spread syntax. Once you have a copy, you can safely apply reverse, sort, or other modifying operations on that copy. However, be careful. Even though you've copied the array, this only creates a shallow copy. The items inside are still references to the same objects as before. If those objects themselves are modified, it would still mutate your state indirectly. To prevent this, you should copy not only the array but also any nested objects you intend to change. 9. Updating objects inside arrays. Objects stored inside arrays are not literally inside them. The array simply holds references to those objects. That means if two arrays refer to the same object, mutating it through one array affects both. When you update nested state, you must copy the parts of the structure that change, all the way up to the root. A common mistake is to copy only the outer array but then directly modify one of the objects inside it. This still mutates shared state. Instead, you can use map to return a completely new array where the object you want to update is replaced by a new object that contains the updated values. The rest of the items remain unchanged. This ensures that no object in your new array shares a reference with the old one, preventing unwanted side effects and bugs. 10. Write concise update logic with IMA. When updating deeply nested arrays or objects, the process can become repetitive. In most cases, you shouldn't need to go very deep. If your state structure is too complex, consider flattening it. However, if you still prefer to write updates in a more natural, mutating style, you can use IMA. IMA allows you to write code as if you were mutating the data, but under the hood, it produces an entirely new immutable version of the state. It works by giving you a temporary draft version of your state that you can change directly. Behind the scenes, IMA tracks those changes and creates the next immutable state automatically. This makes your update logic shorter, clearer, and easier to maintain. 11. Recap. Let's summarize the key ideas. You can store arrays in React state, but you should never modify them directly. Always create a new array instead of mutating the existing one. Use the spread syntax to add or prepend new items. Use filter to remove items and map to update or transform them. Be cautious with operations like sort and reverse. Copy first before using them. For deeply nested updates, consider using IMA to keep your code clean and concise.